Today, I want to talk about the topic of bad decks and why you should have them and why you should consider playing them. So, what's considered a bad deck, right? So, if you look at any kind of top 8 list and you see a whole list of literally everyone's playing either Hololive or Mushoku Tensei, and now I guess like the flavor of the month, the Dual Laners Tokyo Revengers, then you're probably not playing a bad deck. So I just pulled up like a list of the Tokyo Revengers Dual Laners, like a random list on Encore decks, and I kind of want to go over what makes something considered somewhat of a good deck, right? Good decks are very consistent, and if you ever played against a good deck when you're a new player, a lot of times it feels very, very, very oppressive to play against, right? Where let's just say the dual laners, for example, when someone drops the Chifuyu and the Baji down, you really can't do anything against it, especially if you're playing like very old decks as well too. But that aside, right, it almost feels like your opponent is kind of farming you for PvE and you're just waiting to get slammed because they're just playing their own game. They could completely ignore you and you'll still end up going from level 2 to straight dead. And there's really nothing you can really do about it. And it feels very, very oppressive to play against. And a lot of times for new players, it's just not fun. And I touched on this in my previous video when I went to my first shop challenge, as well as since then, I've played against a lot of other standby Mushoku decks where, again, it's another set that it kind of feels very unfun to play against, especially if you're a new player and you don't know how to answer it. Or in some cases, depending on the type of set and deck that you play, you might not have an answer to it, where to a point where it just feels very, very oppressive to play against, where oppressive meaning you really don't feel like you have an answer to a lot of these boards and they just pretty much just dominate the game from the beginning to the finish. And then the answer to a lot of these things most of the time is like, well, just get good, nerd, just play a better deck. And which is why you kind of see a lot of people asking, right, when they first start the game, what is a good deck to build, what is a good deck to play, and then everyone just ends up net decking and playing whatever the best deck is on the top 8 list, which is why you kind of see like an influx of a lot of people just asking to buy a lot of these dual laner cards because it's just the flavor of the month. And you know what, it's cheesy and it feels oppressive, so I guess I'm gonna play that. Don't get me wrong though, there's one thing that I want to make clear as I go on this video, is that good decks are not fair. Meaning that if your deck is good, it means that it's supposed to be oppressive, it's supposed to win games, and it has to feel unfair in order to win consistently, right? But the point I want to kind of get at is that if someone is a new player and they're coming into this game, if every single game they're running into Hololive, they're running into Mushoku, and now they're running into dual laners, and they're just like a new player, they might be just playing, whatever deck that they might just want to play because it's fun and that's the series that they like, it could drive out a lot of these new players. And I think that's a pretty good example if you actually look at, considering how small the game actually is, there's a reason why a lot of people feel like it's very, very daunting to even go into the games, where I spoke with quite a few people that kind of shared with me the same sentiments that, you know what, I tried going to my locals and every single game, I'm just running into whatever the most meta deck is. Everyone's just playing Mushoku, everyone's just playing Hololive, or whatever is on the top 8 list, and it's just not fun, and I think I'm going to stop going to them. And I do kind of understand why there's such a small community of people that actually play the game for fun or casually, and mostly people just play super fucking meta. The reasoning behind it is because the game is kind of so small, and the fact that most players that's been around for so long, they're very, very jaded, right? As a new player, a lot of people are like, oh man, I'm going to play my favorite series. And then they become very, very discouraged because when they end up playing these like super old sets, they just get slammed by Hololive, get slammed by Mushoku, and all these new decks because they just can't compete with them. And everyone's just playing whatever, I don't know, the world champion decks are, right? And I kind of understand that as well too, because as people that's been around for a really long time, they've been playing the game like forever, it's kind of understandable for people to be jaded and they kind of get past that honeymoon phase of, you know what, you want to play the game for fun, and they're just kind of at the point where they're just kind of playing whatever is the most competitive, which I kind of get. But at the same time, it's kind of very detrimental for new players to be coming in, especially with the fact that in the next year or so, there's going to be even more new players coming in with sets like Avatar, for example, coming in. you're gonna have a lot of more attention to the game. And I think it's a really, really important thing where you want to have bad decks so that you could kind of introduce people to the game instead of just trying to bend them over and slam them, right? And I'm going to use an analogy. I love using analogies to make it a little bit more easier to understand, right? Imagine someone's a new player and you replace Weiss Schwarz with basketball, right? So you're someone that's trying to teach a friend or someone that's new on how to play basketball. And instead of taking your time to teach them and, show them the ropes on how to play, you're just playing like you're fucking LeBron James going to the NBA championships or I don't know, like the conference finals or something. And you're just like dunking on this guy going 100 to like 0. Do you really feel like someone playing Weiss Schwarz then? And they're just playing whatever fun deck that they put together because they really love the series. And then boom, you're just fucking slam dunking on this motherfucker with Hololive, Mushoku Standby, and all these other oppressive decks. And do you really feel like new players will want to stick around after that experience? After they leave their locals, they're just going to be like, oh, you know what? That was a really fun experience getting fucking dunked on. I can't wait to go back and get fucked over again. Like, I'm not telling people to play like absolute dog shit decks where you just have absolutely no chance of winning, right? Or just sandbagging. But you could throw a lot of variety into your decks. Like, for example, I'm looking to build like a Beetlejuice deck where I think it'll be really fun to play, as well as I plan to build like a LOL cult deck from Mob Psycho as well too, where they're fun decks to play, right? They don't have to be absolute dog shit where you're just aiming to lose. I'm not telling you to sandbag and lose on purpose, but I think that there does need to be some sort of variety where not everyone's just playing the fucking top 8 of BRO or Springfest or wherever the fuck it is, where especially if you have a lot of new players coming in, it doesn't hurt to carry some sort of like non-meta deck, right? Where if you end up playing against a new player, rather than just slamming them, banging over, and just like kind of just going through the motions of it, there's two types of people. There's some people that are very, very friendly to new players, and they're like, okay, they will tell you like, where you could have done better, mistakes that you made, or whatever it is. And there's some people that just kind of go through emotions like, oh, good game, get fucked, learn better next time, right? And for the most part, I would say I've been pretty lucky when it came to learning this game, where most of the people that I've ran into from when I first started the game have been very, very patient and actually taught me how to play the game when I'm playing my first games, where it's stuff like, hey, you know what? Oh, are you sure you want to do that? Did you want to redo the turn or whatever it is? We could have done this instead. Where I feel like I kind of want to pay it forward when I do play against new players and I do teach someone new as well too. That even though I'm not good at the game, like I know the basics to teach other people, right? Where I feel like when I play like very, very casual games with people, or just playing games in general, where I'm not looking to like fucking become the world champion, so I really don't mind if people play down like, oh, I made a mistake, or I forgot to clock a draw. I'm just go ahead, fix it, or whatever it is. If you wanted to attack differently, if you wanted to clock the draw, just fucking do it, right? Where I feel like that's very, very important, especially since most of the time you're playing casually, right? You're not looking to become like the world fucking champion. So if you're playing against someone that's new, it's okay to just tell them like, hey, you know what? If you want to just redo that turn, or you could have done this instead, then just tell them, so that way they could have learned from it rather than just fucking slamming them, bending them over, and then go like, okay, you're going to learn eventually. So at the end of the day, I have this clock tower video up because it's one of the first Weiss videos that I've watched, and I feel like it's very, very underrated. I don't know why not more people have watched these videos, where they did a series on the Holy Grail War where they just had a bunch of fake decks go against each other. And at the core of it, I feel like this is what attracted me to Weiss Schwarz, right? Where you could just play your favorite characters, just have fun, and there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to these games. But by the way, check these videos out. You'll find on YouTube, just look up the Clock Tower Weiss channel, and they have like a whole series on it. It's very, very fun to watch. I wish they would do more of it. But going back to the point I was making was that I feel like Weiss is sort of leaning more towards very, very unfair decks. Unfair meaning where something like the Dual Laners or Mushoku, for example, right? Where they could just completely almost like ignore what the other player is doing. And as the opposing player, as someone playing against it, you have to find ways to react to it. And if you don't react to it, then they could just pretty much ignore you, and like the dual laners, for example, bring you from 2-0 to like straight dead, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? You could bring all these like, points like, oh, you could do this, you could do that, or whatever it is, but it doesn't change the fact that it feels very, very oppressive where someone's just playing fucking PvE against you and just farming you like a monster. So I feel like that's kind of a direction that I don't really enjoy in Weiss. And when everyone's just playing to win, it kind of makes it very, very, very unfun as someone who is playing against it, especially if you're a new player, which is why a lot of new players get driven away. And I get these messages all the time of people telling me, like, hey, you know what? They share the same feelings on the new player experience, and they feel the same gripes where, I'm going to my locals and I'm running into all these decks that are just not fun to play against. I'm just seeing the same shit over and over again. Just they end up quitting the game. And I really think that, that's really, really missing the point of what makes the game fun and what attracts a lot of people to the game. Like for me, I was like, oh, I saw a Gilgamesh video, like, oh, I want to check this out. And I ended up making a Gilgamesh deck myself. It was not that great. I made my own variants of the Clock Tower deck, and it turned out to be kind of awful. But I still have fun playing, and then from that, I kind of progressed on into building other off-meta decks, right? As opposed to like someone joining into the game, like, okay, I'm just gonna copy it, whatever the top 8 is, just play that, and then you go to a local group and everyone's just playing, whatever the top 8 deck is. Everyone's just playing the same deck versus each other. It's like, okay, who could win with the most oppressive deck? And it is, I think it's kind of missing the point when it comes to that. And it's a shame because there are just so many different type of decks out there, so many different type of series out there. But when everyone's playing Hololive, Mushoku, dual laners, or whatever it is, right? It makes these new players not want to try because they're like, well, I don't want to play these series, and that's all I'm running into, so I guess I'll just quit the game. So yeah, that's pretty much just another one of the gripes that I kind of had in regards to just my experience as a new player after playing for, I guess, geez, almost half a year now, which is not really that long, but just kind of things I run into, as well as kind of the sentiments that you guys share with me in the comments and message me about and say, hey, you know what? I kind of share the same feelings when it comes to being a new player in Weiss, and it's not like an isolated incident. There's so many new people that just start off with the game and just end up losing interest and just don't want to go to their locals after going once, just because they just keep running into the same decks that feel very oppressive. And you know what? Maybe some people just want to go to their locals and play. They want to play, I don't know, Fate Zero Gilgamesh. They want to play, some shitty Lion King deck that's not a carbon copy of whatever is on Encore decks. You know what I mean? Some people just want to play Mob Psycho, for example, right? But they can't because everyone's just playing all these like really, really new decks, and it's just impossible for them to ever win. So I would say next time you go to your locals, where you're playing at the local event, or if you're just playing like casually or whatever it is, bring a shitty deck. Bring something that's just for fun. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, what, Springfest and whatever Bushiroad Championships is coming up, wherever it is, like, you know what? After that's over, that's like another like year until the next event or whatever it is. You know what? Not everyone is looking to become like a world champion. Not everyone's looking to go to regionals. At the end of the day, you know what? There are sweaty people that just want to win. I get it. That's what makes people want to play. They want to win. They want to be like champions. There's a lot of people that also just want to play the game just to have fun as well too. So I think that's the more casuals part of the community. I think it's often forgotten about, where not everyone's just looking to watch like some 30-minute video on like how to be super sweaty and be like the most optimal on their plays, right? Some people are just like me. They just want to oonga boonga slam their cards down, pray for the fest, and that's how they have fun, and that's how I have fun. So yeah, that's pretty much my rant. Bring a shitty deck every once in a while, so if you end up running up to like someone that's new to the game, maybe try not bending them over and slamming them like you're LeBron James going to the NBA Finals. You know what? Then maybe the community will grow more, and it'll be a lot of good things come with more people staying with the game, right? You have more people opening cards. Cards will be cheaper. You have more people to play with, and that's always a good thing, right? All right. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.